Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona, and this is the November 17th edition of Horses to Watch, where we carefully analyze trips, looking for horses that might have encountered adversity in their prior starts and could be worth betting back when they run back in the future. This week, we're taking a look back at opening week of Aqueduct's fall meet, and they had some rainy weather in the New York area, so they were off the turf on one of those days. We did have what may have been a bias situation on the main track on that Friday card when they were off the turf, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But on this show, I'm going to talk about three replays in total, focusing on three first-time starters across these races. And that's something about the Aqueduct Fall Meet that I always like, is that you do have a lot of maiden races, a lot of two-year-olds being unveiled at this meet. So you tend to find some horses who maybe were a little bit inexperienced, not ready for that debut, and they have some trips first time out and could be worth betting back when they run back in the future, either later in the month, November or early December. Let's start off by taking a look from that Friday card that I was mentioning that might have featured that track bias situation. They were off the turf all day, so sloppy main track conditions. And we're going to talk about two consecutive maiden races on that Friday, November 12th card. Beginning with race 5, it's a maiden special weight race that was taken off the turf, going 1 mile on the main track. Let's break these runners from the gate. We're actually going to take a look at the head-on of this replay for the entire race. And that bias that I was talking about is that the rail probably was not the place to be. You saw a lot of horses rallying down the center of the racetrack on this Friday card. Horses that migrated down towards the inside typically lost momentum late in the races, passed by horses making those wide runs down the center of the racetrack. So I want to focus on some horses that were inside for their entire trips on Friday. And one of these is the number 4, Order of Magnitude, a Chad Brown-Klarovich first-time starter who was making his debut here, going a mile. He was entered for the turf, but stayed in when this race came off. And you'll notice he took a bump coming out of the starting gate, but now you see him progressing down the backstretch, and he's the only horse that's placed right down in that rail path. You can see almost all the riders are staying about one path off the rail, except for Irad Ortiz on Order of Magnitude. And you can see the horse is not responding to being down that deeper going on the inside. Irad actually has to go to the whip before they get to the half-mile pole to keep this horse engaged. And also, he's taking a ton of kickback being down on the inside. That's a tough thing for a first-time starter. And you can see coming around the turn here, Irad is angling his head to the outside, I think, to try to get him off of that rail path. But this horse seems like he has a bit of a tendency to lug in. He's reluctant to come off that rail position. And there you see Irad going to the left-handed whip and really tugging him aggressively to get off the rail right here. And he makes this quick move to get to the outside in the stretch. And we're highlighting him there. He made that quick maneuver, going to go from the inside path to the outside. But you see, even right there, he tries to log in a little bit again. Irad corrects him with the left-handed stick. He's going to finish far back in this race, I think, beaten over 10 lengths, crossing the wire in about 6th position. But just a horse that was pretty green and was racing on the wrong part of the track for almost the entirety of his trip. So one that I think you want to give a second chance to next time out. And also, even though this horse was entered for the turf first time out, he's by Curlin. He's a half-brother to the champion dirt sprinter Dre Fong. So there's plenty of dirt pedigree here. Maybe the fact that he wasn't trading that aggressively over the dirt led Chad Brown to enter him for the turf in his debut. But he's one that I think is going to benefit from this experience, regardless of what surface he comes back on next time out. And I think we'll see a better performance from Order of Magnitude in the future. Let's fast forward to the very next race at Aqueduct on Friday, November 12th. It is race 6, a New York bred maiden special weight for the 2-year-old fillies going 6 furlongs. Again, this one was taken off the turf. And let's break these runners from the gate. We're going to look at the pan shot this time and focus on the number 2, Noli Temere, who is a first-time starter for Kelly Breen. This horse breaks about a step slowly, not a disaster, typical start that's a little flat-footed from a first-time starter, but you can see she drops right out of the race after this, does not have much early speed at all, and her rider, Jose Ortiz, really is not making much effort to get her involved in the early portion of this race. She just was not aggressive coming out of the gate, but she finds herself towards the back of the pack, and this is a race that was dominated more towards the front end, even though horses that were successful did have outside position early. There was not a whole lot of closing going on from the back of the pack, and the number 2, Noli Temere, Jose Ortiz keeps her pretty much on the rail for about the entirety of her trip. She's on the rail here. She's going to sneak up inside of some horses coming around the far turn, coming to the quarter pole right here. She's just glued to the rail here. And you can see even coming to the top of the stretch, she really does not get very far off the rail at any point. She's briefly going to angle out in mid-stretch about here, but she's going to go right back to the inside after that. And she just finds herself on the deepest part of the track, for her entire trip. Now, this is a horse that I think runs okay, all things considered, given that this was a dirt race first time out, but she's a horse that has a big turf pedigree, unlike that horse that we just talked about, order of magnitude. This one really was meant for the turf because on the dam side, she's out of Chestoria, who was a good turf stakes winning mare, and she's been a really excellent producer for these connections, DLR Corporation. She's produced horses like A Little Faith and Mo Faith, multiple turf winners for these connections. So I think Noli Temere is one that's definitely going to appreciate getting on the turf next time out. We'll see if Kelly Breen can sneak in a turf start before the turf season ends at Aqueduct. Given the weather these days in New York, typically they're able to run turf races until early December. So we'll see if Noli Temere can get on that preferred surface when she makes her second start, hopefully in the coming month. Let's close things out with a race from Sunday's card at Aqueduct, November 14th. This was race 4, again, a New York bred maiden specially going 6 furlongs. This one's scheduled for the turf, though, and stayed on the turf. And these 2-year-olds are Colts and Geldings. Let's break these runners from the gate. We're going to focus on another first-time starter, the number 1 Whistler's Honor. And you can see this horse just completely blows the start. He breaks about a length slowly, gets cut off coming out of the starting gate, and finds himself way back in last place early. Probably not a big surprise, though, given this horse's pedigree and physical makeup. Doesn't look like a pure sprinter. Seemed a little bit curious that his trainer, Jorge Abreu, who is so potent with his first-time starters usually, would have entered this horse going 6 furlongs, because just a glance at his pedigree, he's bitonalist, that of an Indian Charlie mare, really a pedigree that says this one should want to go much longer than 6 furlongs on the turf. And you can see he just doesn't really possess that early speed to go with these horses early. And this is a race, it should be noted, that is completely dominated towards the front end. You see those 3 horses that are sharing the lead right now, the number 3, 5, and 12, Bucker 2, Sandrone, and the winner of this race, the number 12. They just go around the track sharing the lead for the entire race. They're 1, 2, 3 early, and they finish 1, 2, 3. And we just highlighted the number 1 Whistler's Honor all the way back in about 10th place at the top of the stretch. He's way back for the entire race, and he goes off the screen here, but check out where Whistler's Honor finishes in this race, because you can kind of see the chiclet at the bottom of the screen, the number 1 horse. He's quickly making up ground at the end of this race. He's actually going to get up for 5th at the end, passing many horses in the stretch. And if we can keep rolling a little bit past the gallop out and watch this horse as he basically goes about a furlong to a furlong and a half past the wire, there he is in the white silks and the green cap. He's running out past the wire and even passes the winner of this race about a furlong after the finish. So this is one that really had built up a lot of momentum by the time they crossed the wire. He just couldn't keep up with this field early and seemed like one that wanted no part of that 6 furlong distance. So I just think a horse that maybe the connections misread a little bit. Maybe they knew he needed the first start and they entered him going too short intentionally, hoping that he would do better second time out. As I said, Jorge Abreu typically has his firsters cranked up to win their debuts, but this seems like one that really did need the debut experience. So he might buck those trainer stats of doing better first time out than second time out. So I would look for Whistler's Honor getting on turf in a route race in his second career start. So those are all the horses to watch for this week. Remember, if you want to follow these horses in the future, you can add them to your horse watch on DRF.com, add them to a list, and you'll get email notifications when these horses are entered back in the future. Thanks for tuning in this week, and make sure to catch future episodes of Horses to Watch on upcoming Wednesdays.